Welcome to our channel, where we explore history's most intriguing mysteries and figures. Today we're examining the betrayal of Jesus by Judas Iscariot, a moment that has fascinated and puzzled people for centuries. The question remains, why did Judas betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver? Was it simply about money, or was there more to it? To understand Judas's actions, we must first consider who Judas was within the inner circle of Jesus's followers. Judas Iscariot, as one of the 12 apostles, was not an outsider. He was chosen by Jesus and walked closely with him, witnessing miracles, teachings, and sharing daily life with Jesus and the disciples. This closeness makes his act of betrayal particularly striking, and over centuries, people have tried to understand what could drive someone so close to Jesus to commit such a fateful act. Many interpretations suggest that Judas may have grown disillusioned with Jesus' mission. Jesus' teachings were revolutionary but peaceful, focused on love, forgiveness, and spiritual renewal, rather than a political revolution against Roman rule. In a time when the Jewish people were oppressed under Roman occupation, there were high expectations for a Messiah who would deliver them politically. Judas may have shared this hope, expecting that Jesus would lead a revolt and establish an earthly kingdom, liberating Israel from the Romans. When it became clear that Jesus' mission was different, focusing on spiritual rather than political deliverance, Judas might have felt disheartened or even betrayed by his own expectations. The Gospels describe the betrayal price, 30 pieces of silver, using language that reflects its symbolic significance. In the Old Testament, 30 pieces of silver was the compensation paid for the accidental death of a slave, symbolizing a basic and minimal value. By accepting this sum to betray Jesus, Judas may have inadvertently reduced Jesus' worth in the eyes of those conspiring against him. The chief priest's offer of 30 silver coins could have represented a dismissive valuation of Jesus' life and mission, highlighting a broader societal rejection of Jesus' message and teachings. But this symbolic amount also raises the question, was Judas's betrayal really about money? If Judas was indeed motivated by financial gain, he was willing to trade in his loyalty for what was, in the grand scheme, a modest sum. This act might suggest a prioritization of material wealth over spiritual value. However, 30 pieces of silver, while significant, was not an enormous amount. Some scholars suggest that Judas's motivations were more complex, intertwined with disappointment and perhaps even fear. The Gospels describe Judas as treasurer for the disciples, which placed him in a position where money was a daily concern. Perhaps his handling of finances influenced his decision-making, especially if he already felt at odds with Jesus' ministry. There's another theory that Judas's actions might have been an attempt to force Jesus' hand, to initiate a confrontation between Jesus and the authorities. If Judas believed that an arrest would compel Jesus to reveal his full power, he might have seen the betrayal as a necessary push for Jesus to claim his kingship. This view paints Judas not as a cold-hearted traitor, but as someone who misjudged Jesus' purpose, hoping for an earthly kingdom where Jesus' authority would be undeniable. In this sense, Judas's betrayal could be viewed as a tragic mistake born of misunderstanding Jesus' mission. The Gospel accounts also suggest that Judas struggled deeply with guilt after the betrayal. According to Matthew's Gospel, Judas returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests, confessing, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." This act of returning the money can be seen as an admission of regret, an acknowledgement that he realized, too late, the gravity of his actions. Afterward, Judas took his own life, consumed by remorse. This tragic end reveals the inner turmoil Judas faced, and it has sparked centuries of debate over his legacy. Was he simply a man overcome by guilt, or a symbol of ultimate betrayal? Another layer to this story is found in the Gospel of Judas, a Gnostic text discovered in the 1970s. This controversial account offers a vastly different perspective, suggesting that Judas's actions were not a betrayal in the traditional sense. Instead, the Gospel of Judas portrays him as the disciple closest to Jesus, chosen to fulfill a difficult role as part of a divine plan. In this text, Jesus instructs Judas to betray him, framing it as a necessary step for the salvation narrative. This interpretation casts Judas in a sympathetic light, presenting him as a faithful servant rather than a villain, following Jesus' orders despite the personal cost. The inclusion of Judas's betrayal in the Gospels has led many to view his role as a fulfillment of prophecy. References to the Old Testament, such as Zechariah 11:12-13, hint at a prophetic link between Judas's betrayal and the path that Jesus was destined to walk. This passage, which speaks of 30 pieces of silver in a potter's field, has been interpreted as foreshadowing Judas's actions. The idea of predestination, that Judas's role was inevitable, raises questions about the nature of free will. Did Judas have a choice, or was he simply carrying out a divine plan? In addition to fulfilling prophecy, Judas's story speaks to the universal human experience of temptation and inner conflict. Judas walked alongside Jesus, sharing in his miracles and witnessing his compassion, yet ultimately fell prey to forces that led him astray. His story invites us to reflect on how betrayal and moral compromise can stem from even the most trusted people, reminding us of the complexity of human nature and the frailty of loyalty under pressure. Judas's actions force us to ask ourselves, what drives someone to betray those closest to them? Are there circumstances that make betrayal inevitable? The chief priests also play a crucial role in Judas's story. They sought to eliminate Jesus, viewing him as a threat to their authority and to the stability of the religious establishment. By persuading Judas, they used his closeness to Jesus to their advantage. This manipulation reveals the lengths to which those in power will go to silence dissent, using betrayal as a tool to maintain control. In this way, Judas's betrayal is not only a personal failure, but also a symptom of broader corruption and manipulation. In the aftermath of Judas's actions, the remaining apostles struggled to understand and come to terms with the betrayal. Judas's place among the 12 was eventually filled, symbolizing a restoration of the group, but also a painful reminder of his departure. In Christian teachings, Judas's betrayal is sometimes contrasted with the actions of Peter, who also denied Jesus, but ultimately sought forgiveness. This contrast highlights different responses to failure, one of remorse and despair, the other of repentance and redemption. Judas's fate remains a powerful reminder of the choices we face and the impact of those choices on our lives. Theologically, Judas's betrayal and subsequent remorse underscore the Christian themes of forgiveness and redemption. Jesus' message of love and forgiveness suggests that, even for someone like Judas, there could have been a path to reconciliation. Yet Judas's despair led him down a path of self-destruction, illustrating the consequences of hopelessness and the importance of seeking forgiveness, even in the darkest moments. His story encourages us to embrace humility, recognizing that we all face moments of weakness, and challenges us to choose a path that leads to healing rather than despair. Furthermore, Judas's narrative raises philosophical questions about morality and human nature. It challenges us to consider the circumstances under which individuals make ethical decisions and the potential for redemption. Judas's choice to betray a friend and teacher speaks to the darker aspects of human nature, where personal gain or despair can outweigh loyalty and love. This moral conflict can resonate deeply with anyone who has faced difficult choices in their own lives, leading us to question what we would do in similar situations. Judas's story also highlights the idea of consequence, how our actions ripple through time and affect not only our lives but also the lives of others. His betrayal set in motion events that led to the crucifixion, a pivotal moment in Christian theology that symbolizes sacrifice and redemption. This connection between actions and consequences emphasizes the weight of our choices and the importance of moral integrity. Finally, the legacy of Judas Iscariot continues to be a topic of discussion in modern theology, literature, and art. His name has become synonymous with betrayal, and throughout history, writers and artists have explored his character and motivations, reflecting society's fascination with the complexities of human behavior. Judas's story invites ongoing reflection on loyalty, the nature of evil, and the capacity for redemption, making it relevant to contemporary discussions about morality and the human condition. Thank you for joining us in this deep dive into one of the Bible's most complex and thought-provoking stories. We hope this exploration has provided new insights into Judas's motivations, and the timeless questions his story raises about loyalty, betrayal, and forgiveness. If you found this discussion insightful, please consider subscribing to our channel for more explorations into history's most profound moments. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update on our latest content. Thank you, and we'll see you next time as we continue uncovering the mysteries of the past.